Jake couldn't sleep. For 3 months, he had been living this incredible double life, going to work during the day and coming home to 4 amazing women from another planet. But tonight felt different. Tonight, Zara had asked him to sit down for an important conversation, and the serious look in her star-filled eyes made his stomach twist with worry. They sat together on his old couch while Lyra, Nova, and Kira gathered around them. The mental connection between all of them felt stronger than ever, like invisible threads linking their thoughts and feelings. Jake Zara began, both speaking aloud, and through their mental link, there is something we must tell you. Something we should have explained much sooner. Jake asked, though part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know. Lyra stepped forward, her gentle face filled with concern. When you saved us from the crash, when you brought us to your home and cared for us, you did something very special in our culture, but you did not know what you were doing. Jake felt his heart start to race. What do you mean? Nova, the youngest, knelt beside the couch and took Jake's hand in both of hers. In our world, when someone saves the life of another and then provides shelter and care for an extended time, it creates a bond, a very sacred bond. We call it the HFY, Kira added, her voice soft but serious. It means soul joining in your language. Jake looked from one face to another, seeing a mixture of love, worry, and something that looked almost like guilt in their expressions. I don't understand. What kind of bond? Zara took a deep breath. Jake, by saving our lives and caring for us, by sharing your home and your food, by accepting our mental connection, you have accidentally entered into the most sacred commitment in our culture. In the eyes of our people, you are now bound to us as our life partner. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Life partner? You mean like ... married? More than married, Lyra explained gently. The HFY bond goes deeper than your marriage. Customs. It is a joining of souls, of life forces. Once created, it cannot be undone. Jake stood up quickly, running his hands through his hair.
Wait! You're telling me that I'm somehow married to all 4 of you, and I didn't even know it was happening?
We did not know either, at first, Nova said sadly. The bond usually happens slowly over many months, but with you it formed much faster than normal. We think it is because you have such a pure heart, such a strong desire to help others. Jake paced around his small living room, his mind racing. This is crazy. I mean, I care about all of you, I really do. But I never agreed to be anyone's husband, especially not 2 for people at once. Kira stood and moved to block his path, her eyes fierce but kind. Jake, please listen. We did not plan this either. But the bond is real, and it is changing all of us. What do you mean changing us? Jake asked. Zara gestured for him to sit back down. Have you not noticed the differences in yourself? Way you can hear things from far away now, the way colors look brighter, the way you feel stronger and faster. Jake had noticed all of those things, but he'd tried not to think about them too much. That's because of this bond thing. Yes, Lyra said. The HFY bond shares life energy between the bonded partners. You are becoming part Etherean, just as we are becoming part human. Your lifespan will be much longer now, your abilities enhanced. And there's more, Nova added quietly. Because of the bond, we can sense your emotions all the time now. We know when you are happy, when you are worried, when you are lonely. Just as you have been feeling our emotions without realizing it, Jake thought about all the times over. The past months, when he'd felt waves of happiness or sadness that didn't seem to come from him, he'd thought it was just stress from the situation. So what happens now? He asked. What does this bond mean for all of us? Before anyone could answer, Jake's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of vehicles approaching his cabin. Multiple vehicles moving slowly with their engines running quiet. They're here, Kira said, instantly alert. The ones who have been searching for us. Through the window, Jake could see flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. At least 6 vehicles surrounded his property, and figures in dark clothing were moving toward his cabin. Jake Thompson, a voice called through a loudspeaker. This is Agent Reynolds with the Department of Special Investigations. We know you're in there, and we know you're not alone. Come out with your hands visible. Jake's heart pounded as he looked at the four women who had become such an important part of his life. In that moment, facing the possibility of losing them, he realized something important. "I don't care about the bond," he said suddenly. "I don't care if I agreed to it or not. I care about all of you, and I'm not letting them take you away." Zara's eyes filled with tears that sparkled like liquid starlight. "Jake, you do not understand the danger. If they capture us, then—" "We don't let them capture us," Jake said firmly. "Said this bond makes me stronger, right? That I have some of your abilities now?" "Yes, but Jake," Lyra protested, "there are too many of them." "Out." Jake walked to his gun cabinet and pulled out his hunting rifle, then grabbed his emergency backpack. "Maybe, but I've been doing search and rescue in these mountains for 12 years. I know every trail, every cave, every hidden valley for 50 miles in any direction." Kira smiled, and for the first time since Jake had known her, she looked truly impressed. "You want to run?" "I want to disappear," Jake corrected. "There's a place I know, high up in the mountains. An old mining camp that's been abandoned for decades. We can get there, but only if we leave right now." The loudspeaker crackled again. "Mr. Thompson, you have 2 minutes to come out peacefully. We don't want anyone to get hurt." Nova grabbed Jake's hand. "If we do this, if we run together, there will be no going back to your old life. The bond will only grow stronger." Jake looked at each of them, these four incredible women who had crash-landed into his life and changed everything. 3 months ago, he'd been a lonely man going through the motions of living. Now he felt more alive than he ever had. My old life was just existing," he said. "This feels like actually living." As they prepared to slip out the back door into the Montana wilderness, Jake realized that the choice wasn't really about the bond or alien marriage customs. It was about choosing love over fear, adventure over safety, and the unknown over the familiar. Behind them, the government agents were closing in. Ahead of them lay the dark mountains and an uncertain future. But for the first time in years, Jake knew exactly where he belonged. Jake was having the worst night of his life. Rain poured down his truck windshield as he drove through the dark mountain roads. His radio crackled with static, and the coffee in his thermos had gone cold hours ago. As a search and rescue worker in Montana, he was used to long nights, but this felt different. "Unit 47, we have reports of an aircraft down in Sector 12. His radio buzzed. "Witnesses say they saw bright lights and heard a loud crash about 2 hours ago." Jake grabbed his radio. "This is Unit 47. I'm 20 minutes out. Any word from the military? Could be one of their training flights." "Negative. They say nothing's missing from their fleet. Local sheriff thinks it might be a small plane, but the weather's been too bad for anyone to get close." Jake pressed harder on the gas pedal. In his 12 years of rescue work, he'd pulled people from car crashes, found lost hikers, and saved folks from house fires. But something about tonight felt strange. The storm had come out of nowhere, and the reports from witnesses didn't make much sense. They talked about lights that moved in ways planes shouldn't move. When Jake finally reached the crash site, the first thing he noticed was the smell. It wasn't like burning fuel or metal. It was sweet, almost like flowers, but with an electric temps that made his nose tingle. His flashlight cut through the darkness as he walked toward what remained of the aircraft. What he saw made him stop dead in his tracks. The thing in front of him wasn't any plane he'd ever seen. It was smooth and curved, like someone had carved it from a giant pearl. Parts of it still glowed with a soft blue light, even though it was clearly damaged. Strange symbols ran along its sides, and Jake could swear they were moving, shifting like they were alive. "What in the world?" he whispered to himself. He radioed back to base. "This is Unit 47. I'm at the crash site, and I need to report something unusual. This isn't a normal aircraft. I'm going to need backup." But his radio only gave him static in return. The storm must have knocked out the signal. Jake knew he should wait for help, but his training kicked in. If there were people inside, every minute counted. He grabbed his medical kit and emergency tools from his truck and approached the strange craft. As he got closer, he could see that part of the hull had cracked open. Through the gap he could see movement inside. Someone was alive in there. "Hello?" he called out. "Can you hear me? I'm here to help." No answer came back, but he heard what sounded like soft moaning. Jake squeezed through the opening in the crafts hall, and his flashlight revealed the most incredible sight of his life. 4 figures lay unconscious inside what looked like seats made of the same glowing material as the ship. But these weren't ordinary people. Their skin had a slight shimmer to it, like they were dusted with starlight. They were tall and graceful, even lying down, and their hair seemed to move on its own, floating as if they were underwater. Jake's hand shook as he checked the first one for a pulse. Her skin was warm, and he could feel a heartbeat, but it was different from a human heartbeat. It had an extra rhythm to it, like a song. All 4 were breathing, but barely. They had injuries that looked serious, and Jake knew he was running out of time. The craft was making strange humming sounds, and some of the lights were flickering. Faster now. His training told him to call for backup, to follow protocol, to wait for the proper authorities. But his heart told him something else. These beings, whatever they were, needed help right now. And if the government got involved, who knew what would happen to them? Jake had heard stories from other rescue workers about strange crashes that got covered up, about witnesses who were told to keep quiet. He looked at the 4 peaceful faces and made a decision that would change his life forever. "I'm getting you out of here," he said, even though they couldn't hear him. One by one, Jake carefully moved the 4 beings from their ship to his truck. They were lighter than he expected, and their skin felt warm and smooth, almost like touching silk. As he carried the last one, the youngest looking of the group, the craft behind him began to glow brighter. Jake threw himself into his truck and drove away just as the ship burst into brilliant light. When he looked in his rearview mirror, there was nothing left but a circle of scorched earth and a few pieces of metal that looked perfectly ordinary. His cabin was 30 miles away from the crash site, hidden in a valley where his closest neighbor was miles away. Jake had bought the place after his divorce, wanting somewhere quiet where he could think. He never imagined it would become a secret hospital for visitors from another world. Inside his cabin, Jake laid the 4 beings on his couch in spare beds. In the better light, he could see their injuries more clearly. They'd cuts and bruises, but nothing seemed life-threatening. More puzzling was how their wounds seemed to be healing faster than they should. As Jake cleaned and bandaged their injuries, he noticed other strange things. Their blood was red like human blood, but it sparkled slightly. Their breathing created tiny puffs of mist that glowed for a few seconds before fading. And then, soft patterns of light would travel under their skin like circuit boards made of stars. One of them, a woman with silver hair that seemed to move like water, opened her eyes briefly and looked right at Jake. Her eyes were the color of deep space, dark blue with flecks of light that looked like distant stars. She tried to speak, but only soft sounds came out, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "It's okay," Jake told her softly. "You're safe now. Just rest." She seemed to understand him, because she closed her eyes and relaxed. But not before Jake saw something in her expression that looked like gratitude. For the next 3 days, Jake called in sick to work and stayed home to watch over his unusual guests. He brought them water, which they seemed to absorb through their skin as much as drinking it. He offered them food, but they were more interested in the flowers from his garden, which they held gently and seemed to draw energy from. On the 4th day, the silver-haired woman woke up fully. She sat up slowly and looked around Jake's cabin with curious eyes. When she saw him sitting in his kitchen chair watching over them, she smiled. And that smile changed everything. Wasn't just beautiful, though it was. It was warm and grateful and sad and hopeful all at once. It was the smile of someone who had been lost and afraid and was now safe. It was the smile of someone who recognized a friend. Jake knew in that moment that his life would never be the same. He had rescued 4 beings from another world, and somehow, in saving them, he had found something he didn't even know he was looking for. As the woman tried to speak to him in her musical language, Jake realized he was about to learn that some rescues change the rescuer more than the rescued. The adventure of his lifetime was just beginning. Jake woke up on his 5th day with 4 alien house guests and found one of them standing in his kitchen. staring at his coffee maker like it was the most fascinating thing in the universe. It was the tall one with dark hair that seemed to shimmer between brown and purple, depending on how the light hit it. "Good morning," Jake said carefully, not wanting to startle her. She turned and gave him that same gentle smile he was starting to recognize from all four of them. She pointed at the coffee maker and then at herself, tilting her head in a question. "Coffee?" Jake asked. "You want to try coffee?" She nodded eagerly, and Jake couldn't help but laugh. Here he was, making morning coffee for someone from outer space, and somehow it felt perfectly normal. The coffee experiment didn't go well. The alien woman took one sip, made a face like she'd tasted something terrible, and quickly handed the mug back to Jake. But instead of looking upset, she started laughing. Her laugh sounded like tiny silver bells, and it was so contagious that Jake found himself laughing too. "Not a coffee fan, I guess," he said, still chuckling. That's when something amazing happened. The woman placed her hand gently on Jake's forehead, and suddenly he could hear her voice inside his mind. "Thank you for the drink attempt," her voice said in his head, warm and amused. "My name is Zara. We have been waiting for you to be ready for this connection." Jake jumped back, his heart racing. What just happened? How are you in my head? Zara kept her hand extended toward him, her expression patient and kind. "Do not be afraid. This is how my people communicate when we do not share the same spoken language. It is safe, I promise." Slowly, Jake let her touch his forehead again. This time he was ready for it, and the sensation felt less shocking and more like having a warm conversation by a fireplace. "Are you really reading my mind?" he asked, both out loud and in his thoughts. "Only what you choose to share," Zara replied in his mind. "Think of it like talking, but with thoughts instead of words. You are in control." Over the next hour, Zara explained many things to Jake through their mental connection. She told him that her people were called Ethereans, and they came from a planet that was dying. Their sun was growing too hot, and their world could no longer support life. "We were not the only ship," Zara explained sadly. "Many of our people escaped in different directions, hoping to find new homes among the stars. Our ship was damaged by a solar storm, and we crashed here on your world." Jake learned that each of the four women had different roles in their society. Zara was a pathfinder, someone who navigated through space and found safe routes for her people. The one with the purple-brown hair was named Lyra, and she was a life tender, someone who understood how to heal and help things grow. The youngest-looking one was called Nova, and she was a memory keeper, responsible for preserving the stories and traditions of their people. The fourth, who had striking silver hair and moved with the grace of a dancer, was Kira, a guardian who protected the others from danger. "We are grateful beyond words for what you have done," Zara told him. "You saved our lives when you could have chosen to let others take us away." "I couldn't just leave you there," Jake replied. "Anyone would have done the same thing." Expression grew serious. "No, Jake. Not anyone would have made the choice you made. You risked much to help strangers. This means something special to our people." As the days passed, Jake's life fell into a strange but wonderful routine. He would go to work during the day, telling his boss he was feeling better after being sick. But he spent every free moment at home with his four guests, learning about their world and their culture. Lyra showed him how she could make plants grow faster just by touching them. Jake's garden, which had been struggling in the poor mountain soil, suddenly burst into bloom with vegetables and flowers more beautiful than anything he'd ever seen. Nova shared the stories of her people through the mental connection. Jake saw visions of a world with purple skies and floating cities, where beings of light and beauty lived in harmony with nature. He witnessed the sadness of their planet's decline and the desperate journey that had brought them to Earth. Kira taught him exercises that seemed to make him stronger and more alert. She moved like water, and when she showed Jake her defensive techniques, he found himself moving in ways he never thought possible. But the most remarkable change was in Jake himself. He started noticing things he'd never paid attention to before. He could hear the heartbeat of a bird from across his yard. He could smell rain coming hours before the clouds appeared. Food tasted more intense, colors seemed brighter, and he felt more energetic than he had in years. "What's happening to me?" he asked Zara one evening as they sat on his porch watching the sunset. "The connection we share is changing you," she explained gently. "When different species spend time together in close harmony, sometimes they begin to share traits. Are becoming a little bit like us, just as we are becoming a little bit like you." Jake should have been scared, but instead he felt excited. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. 1 month after the crash, Jake was splitting firewood behind his cabin when he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Ah! There were tire tracks in the mud near his driveway. Fresh tracks from a vehicle that was much heavier than his truck. "Zara," he called out, running into the house. All 4 women looked up as he burst through the door, and they immediately sensed his alarm through their mental connection. "Someone was here while I was at work," Jake said. "Government plates, I think. They're looking for you." Kira stood up, her body tensing like a cat ready to spring. "How long do we have?" "I don't know," Jake replied. "But we need to be ready for anything." Jake looked at the 4 women who had become so important to him. He realized that the easy days of learning and growing together were over. Now came the hard part, protecting the people he cared about from a world that might not understand what they were or why they mattered. Outside, storm clouds were gathering again, but this time Jake knew the real storm wouldn't come from the sky. It would come from the very people he'd spent his whole life serving and protecting. The adventure was about to get much more complicated. Jake led Zara, Lyra, Nova, and Kira through the dark forest behind his cabin, moving as quietly as possible. His enhanced hearing picked up every sound, the government agents breaking down his front door, their frustrated shouts when they found the house empty, and the crackle of radio communications as they called for backup. "They're bringing in helicopters," Jake whispered, "and tracking dogs. We need to move faster." The 5 of them had been running for 2 hours through terrain that would challenge even experienced hikers. But Jake noticed that none of the women seemed tired. If anything, they moved through the forest like they belonged there, stepping so lightly they barely left footprints. "Jake," Zara said through their mental connection, "there is something else we must tell you. We are not the only ones looking." "For us?" Jake stopped so suddenly that Nova almost ran into him. "What do you mean?" Lyra pointed toward the sky, where Jake could see strange lights moving between the clouds. They weren't helicopters or planes. They moved too smoothly, changing direction in ways that defied the laws of physics. "Our people," Kira explained. "A rescue ship has been searching for us since we crashed. They finally found our energy signature." Jake felt a mix of relief and worry. "That's good news, right? Your people can help us get away from the government agents." But the expressions on all 4 women's faces told him it wasn't that simple. "The commander of that ship is someone I once knew very well," Zara said sadly. "His name is Thane, and he was my intended partner before our world began to die. He believes you have taken us against our will. Taken you." Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. "I saved you. You know that," Nova said quickly. "But Thane does not understand human customs or the way the Vashtai bond can form with someone from another species. He thinks you have used some kind of mind control on us." The strange lights in the sky were getting closer, and Jake could now see the outline of a ship that looked similar to the one that had crashed months ago, but much larger. "So let me get this straight," Jake said as they continued moving through the forest. "The human government wants to capture all of you for experiments, and your people want to rescue you from me because they think I'm some kind of villain." "That sums it up pretty well," Kira said with a grim smile. Suddenly, a beam of soft blue light descended from the ship above, and a figure materialized in their path. Jake's first thought was that this newcomer looked like the women, but bigger and more intimidating. Thane was tall with broad shoulders, silver hair that moved like liquid metal, and eyes that glowed with inner fire. "Zara," Thane said in a voice that sounded like distant thunder, "step away from the human. You and the others are coming home with me." "Thane," Zara replied, moving protectively in front of Jake, "you do not understand the situation. This human saved our lives. Is bonded to us through the Vashtai." Thane's glowing eyes fixed on Jake with obvious disgust. "Impossible. A sacred bond cannot form with a primitive species. This creature has corrupted your mind somehow." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he also felt something else. The bond he shared with the four women was sending him there. Emotions. Zara's sadness at seeing her former partner. Lyra's fear of being separated from Jake, Nova's anger at Thane's insults, and Kira's readiness to fight if necessary. "Look, Thane," Jake said, stepping forward despite the alien commander's intimidating presence. "I don't know what your problem is with me, but these women are free to make their own choices. I'm not forcing them to do anything." Silence. Thane commanded, "You will not speak to me, human. Your species is barely evolved beyond animals." That was apparently the wrong thing to say in front of Kira. In one fluid motion, she moved between Thane and Jake, her body taking on a defensive stance that looked both beautiful and deadly. "You will show respect to our bonded partner," she said, her voice cold as winter wind, "or you will deal with me." Thane looked shocked. "Kira, you would defend this alien against your own kind." "I defend my family," Kira replied simply. Before the confrontation could escalate further, the sound of helicopters filled the air. The government forces had found them. "We need to go," Jake said urgently. "All of us can sort out our differences later, but right now we're all in danger." Agent Reynolds' voice echoed through the forest from a helicopter loudspeaker. "Surrender now, and no one gets hurt." "We have the area surrounded." Thane looked from the approaching helicopters to Jake and the four women. "What are those machines?" "Human military aircraft," Zara explained quickly. "Thane, if they capture us, they will experiment on us." Jake is right. We need to work together. For a moment, Jake thought the alien commander might actually listen to reason. But then, Thane did something that changed everything. He raised his hand, and Jake felt a strange, tingling sensation wash over him. "I'm breaking whatever hold you have on my people," Thane declared. Jake expected to feel different, maybe weaker, or more confused. Instead, the bond with Zara, Lyra, Nova, and Kira suddenly blazed stronger than ever. He could feel their love for him, their loyalty, and their complete rejection of Thane's attempt to separate them. "The bond cannot be broken," Zara said, taking Jake's hand. "It is real, Thane. As real as anything in this universe." Thane staggered backward, his glowing eyes wide with disbelief. "This is impossible. The Vashtai with an alien species, ... is exactly what has happened," Nova finished firmly. "And we choose to honor it." The helicopters were getting closer, and Jake could see searchlights sweeping through the trees. They were running out of time. "Thane," Jake said desperately, "I know you don't trust me, but those helicopters are carrying people who want to hurt the women I love. Are you going to help us protect them, or are you going to let your pride get them captured?" For a long moment, the alien commander stood frozen, torn between his prejudices and his duty to protect his people. Then one of the helicopters spotted them, and its searchlight lit up their position like daylight. "There they are," Agent Reynolds' voice boomed. "Move in." Thane looked at the approaching aircraft, then at Jake and the four women standing together. United despite everything. "Very well, human," he said grimly. "But when this is over, you and I will have a very long conversation about what you have done to my people." "Looking forward to it," Jake replied, meaning every word. As government agents rappelled from helicopters and alien technology activated around them, Jake realized that his quiet life in the Montana mountains was officially over. But looking at Zara, Lyra, Nova, and Kira, standing beside him, ready to face whatever came next, he knew he had found something worth fighting for. The real battle was just beginning. The forest clearing erupted into chaos as government helicopters descended and alien technology hummed to life. Jake found himself in the middle of a standoff between two worlds, with the four women he loved caught in between. Stepped out of the lead helicopter, flanked by a dozen heavily armed soldiers. His cold eyes swept over the group before settling on Jake. "Mr. Thompson, you've led us quite a chase," Reynolds said. "But it's over now. Step away from the subjects and we can discuss this like civilized people." Subjects. Jake felt anger surge through him. These are living beings, not lab experiments. Thane moved forward, his imposing figure radiating power. "Agent Reynolds, I presume?" "I am Commander Thane of the Etherian Fleet. These women are under my protection now." Reynolds studied the alien commander with calculating eyes. Interesting. So you're here to collect your people. That works for us. Take them and leave Earth immediately. Wait, Jake said, stepping between the two groups. Nobody's taking anybody anywhere without asking what they want first. Through their mental bond, Jake could feel the emotions of Zara, Lyra, Nova, and Kira. They were scared, torn between loyalty to their species and their love for him. But underneath it all, he sensed their determination to stay together. Jake, Zara said softly, both aloud and through their connection, we need to tell you something. There is a third option. Agent Reynolds raised his weapon. Nobody moves until we sort this out. But Lyra stepped forward, her gentle nature somehow making her seem fearless in the face of the guns pointed at her. There is an uninhabited world, 3 star systems from here. Beautiful planet with clean air, fertile soil, and twin suns. Our scouts found it years ago, but we never had enough people to establish a colony there. What are you saying? Thane demanded. Nova joined her sister, taking Jake's hand. We could go there together, all of us. Build something new, something that belongs to neither Earth nor our dying homeworld. Jake's heart raced as he understood what they were offering. You want me to leave Earth? Forever? Only if you choose to, Kira said, moving to his other side. But Jake, here you would always be hunted. The government would never stop looking for us, and our people. She glanced at Thane, would never fully accept you. Agent Reynolds laughed harshly. This is ridiculous.
Thompson?
These things have brainwashed you. Come with us, and we'll get you the help you need. The only thing I need, Jake said firmly, is to be with my family. That word hung in the air like a challenge. Family. It was such a simple concept, but it changed everything. Thane's expression softened slightly as he looked at the 5 of them standing together. The bond truly cannot be broken, he said quietly. I can see it now, the energy that flows between you. It is real, more real than anything I've ever felt, Jake replied. Agent Reynolds was getting impatient. Enough talk. Surrender now, or we'll take you all by force. But before anyone could move, something unexpected happened. More lights appeared in the sky. Not government helicopters or alien ships, but something else entirely. Refugee vessels, Thane said with amazement. Dozens of them, Zara's eyes. Filled with tears of joy, our people, the ones who escaped when our world began to die, they followed our signal. Jake watched in wonder as ship after ship descended from the clouds. These weren't military vessels like Thane's, but transport ships filled with families, children, elderly Ethereans who had lost their home and were searching for a new one. One of the ships landed nearby, and an elderly Etherean woman emerged. Her hair was white as starlight, and her eyes held the wisdom of centuries. Grandmother Vera, Zara whispered, running to embrace the newcomer. The old woman looked at Jake with curious but kind eyes. So this is the human who has bonded with our daughters. I can sense the Vashtai bond even from here. It burns bright. As a star, Agent Reynolds raised his weapon again. I don't care how many of you there are. You're all coming with us for questioning. But Grandmother Vera simply smiled and raised her hand. Suddenly, all the government weapons stopped working. Engines died, radios went silent, and even the helicopter's rotors slowed to a stop. Technology is useful, she said gently, but it can be very fragile when it encounters something it doesn't understand. Now, Grandmother Vera continued, looking at Jake, I understand you have been offered a choice, young human. Come with us to build a new world, or stay here and face constant persecution. Jake looked around at the scene. Government agents stood helplessly with their dead equipment, while dozens of alien ships waited in the sky, filled with refugees who needed a home. Thane stood nearby, no longer an enemy, but not quite a friend. And most importantly, Zara, Lyra, Nova, and Kira stood beside him, their love flowing through their bond like warm sunlight. It's not really a choice, Jake said finally. My home isn't a place. It's the people I love. Agent Reynolds tried one last time. Thompson, think about what you're doing. You're abandoning your own species for aliens. Jake turned to face the agent. No, I'm choosing love over fear. I'm choosing to build something new instead of destroying what I don't understand. As Jake spoke, he felt the bond with his 4 wives growing stronger, and something else was happening too. He could sense the other Ethereans around him, their hopes and dreams, their gratitude for his acceptance. Besides, Jake added with a smile, someone needs to teach all these refugees how to make good coffee. That made even Thane laugh, and Jake realized that humor might be the key to building bridges between species. An hour later, Jake stood on the bridge of Grandmother Vera's ship, watching Earth grow smaller below them. He felt a moment of sadness for the world he was leaving behind, but it was overwhelmed by excitement for what lay ahead. Zara stood beside him, her hand in his. Are you sure about this? Once we reach the new world, there will be no going back. Jake squeezed her hand and looked at Lyra, Nova, and Kira, who were already planning how to set up their new colony. Even Thane was nearby, discussing defense strategies and showing more respect for Jake with each passing hour. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Jake said. I spent years rescuing people and then going home alone. Now I get to rescue an entire species and go home to a family. 3 months later, Jake stood on the porch of the house he'd built with his own hands on a world with purple grass and twin suns. Zara was in the garden with Lyra, growing vegetables that somehow tasted like earth tomatoes but glowed softly. In the dark, Nova was inside, teaching human and Etherean children the stories of both worlds. Kira was training the young adults in defensive techniques that combined human practicality with Etherean grace. And in Jake's arms was something that made everything worthwhile. His and Zara's daughter, the first human Etherean hybrid ever born. She had her mother's starlight eyes and her father's stubborn chin. And when she smiled, tiny patterns of light danced across her skin. What are you thinking about? Zara asked, walking over to join him. Thinking, Jake said, looking out. At the thriving colony, where humans and Ethereans worked side by side, that sometimes the best rescues are the ones that end up rescuing the rescuer too. As the twin suns set over their new world, painting the sky in colors that had no names in either language, Jake knew he had found something he hadn't even realized he was looking for. A home that wasn't built on land or tradition, but on love, acceptance, and the courage to embrace the impossible.